Cardinals fall 5-1 and lose a series to the Detroit Tigers. This is Cards Hub Postgame, sponsored by Hot Shots, home of St. Louis sports fans since 1990 here on Sports Hub STL. All content brought to you by DraftKings. The crown is yours. Joe Roderick, Brenden Schaeffer with you here on a Wednesday afternoon. By my count, the first series that the Cardinals have lost, I believe, since Atlanta a month ago. I think it's been ties and series wins ever since.
I'm not going to check you on that live, but it seems like it might be plausible because they've been rolling for a pretty good while now, and they ran into a Tigers team in this series. I mean, it was a pretty compelling series. This game, maybe not as much. The Cardinals weren't as close, Joe, but Cardinals do lose 2 of 3 for the first time in a while, and I'm curious to see what the comments will be like today, how people are feeling. I mean, this is a Tigers team that did come into the series with the best record in baseball, so how folks are reacting to this one, let us know. Get those comments into the live chat, and we'll get to them as we go along here on the postgame show.
There's a lot to get to. And a 5-1 quick game on a Wednesday, and all these games this series have been relatively quick. A few things, just kind of the bullet points of things to get to. You lose a bullpen game after dominating a bullpen game on Monday. Walks just absolutely killed you again. 3 of the 5 runs that were scored today came from runners who were walked on to base. Palante just wasn't that sharp today in his game. And as you see the comment, and if you're watching this and you're in the comments and in the YouTube chat right now, you see that there are people in there blaming the manager for it and talking about the lineup for today's game. It's a Wednesday afternoon. Again, as much as I would love for guys to play the Braves have it to where how many guys play 155 plus a year in the past year. As much as I would love to have a team like that, no other team is like that. And guys are going to get days off, and that just is what happened today with giving Lars Nootbaar the day off. And it's just one of those games you tip your cap to right now, the team with the best record in all of baseball that you completely dominated in game 1. You gave the reigning Cy Young Award winner a run for his money in game 2, and you just didn't have it in game 3.
Yeah, I feel like they probably left a little meat on the bone against the guy that you thought was kind of going to be the opener and Herder, but he's got good numbers for the season. It's just they maybe could have gotten to him early, and once they didn't, he settled in and was able to get through the lineup and get them through 3 innings, which I think helped to set up the Detroit bullpen where they could afford to be a little bit more aggressive as this game went along because, you're in the final game of a series, you start to empty the clip a little bit. And the Cardinals offensively just didn't have a lot really going for them in this one this afternoon. Cardinals have played now 50 games, Joe. Lars Nootbaar has played in 48 of those games. So I'm not really looking at this. Like, even if we want to use that example where, like, all right, you want to see guys play 155, Newt's on a pace to do that. So I really don't have an issue when you're going to give him a day off. If it's going to be rare and strategic, you're going to do it on a day before an off day so that a guy can truly maximize what that rest period is going to look like. And so nothing more to it than that with Lars getting the day off today. Ivan Herrera behind the plate, it's something that people have been begging for. I've been a little surprised with how good the Cardinals are playing, how many comments we've gotten focused on the fact that Herrera's not catching and wasn't this supposed to be about the runway for different guys when they're winning. Right. And so you lose a game yesterday, you have a day game after a night game. It makes perfect sense to have this be one of the occasions in which you get Herrera behind the plate. I'm not assigning any blame. We do see those games from Palante where he just is not quite as sharp, and the 4 walks given up were part of that. Still isn't out away from recording a quality start, Joe. And so when you have that combined with a bullpen game on the other side, you'd like to think this could have been one of those games where the Cardinals would grind out a 4-3 or a 5-4 win, and it just didn't go that way this afternoon.
Yeah, as far as Herrera goes behind the plate, I've said this and was talking to somebody about this at the game last night. You have to catch him at some point. Is he he is going to be a DH a majority of the time the remainder of this season, I would think. I also do not think that Joel Pozo will be on this team for the final 110 games of the season. at some point, I think that there is going to be some sort of strategic roster move made where you look at it and you say, we are carrying 3 catchers right now. We need to change something up at some point.
Does that actually bother you? It bothers a lot of people. I want to know if it bothers you. I'm not judging you for that. It doesn't bother me, but I want to hear more about that perspective on why is that a problem in your mind, and what is the best solution in your opinion to be able to align the bench in a more effective way? I don't see it as a major issue. I think it's a benefit to have that third catcher because it gives you increased flexibility. Now, you could make the case that if you've got that flexibility, Oliver Marmol should have used it last night when you could have pinch hit Burleson for Pages in the 6th. Didn't, because it shows. I've been telling people since we started Sports Hub STL, I've been beating the drum to tell people Pedro Pages is going to catch a ton of games this year. This was true always because they love him. They loved him before Herrera missed a month with a knee injury. They love him after. But I'm kind of curious for your take on the 3 catchers thing and the way that you think it could kind of line up better. Because I don't disagree. I'm not saying I'm guaranteeing Pozo's here to stay. What do you want to see out of that, though? What do you think they make a gain by doing?
If you continue to see the struggles out of Jordan Walker and out of Nolan Gorman, at some point, Thomas Saggese needs to be back up here. And I just think all-encompassing roster moves of that, I feel like is a combined thing where maybe it's Saggese up here and probably then Ciani back up here, because if it's Walker that you're sending back down or doing something with, if there's an ailment that comes up with Walker to where he gets some time off, you're going to put Saggese's bat back in there, and you're going to need Ciani defensively. And carrying 3 catchers just doesn't work out in that equation when you look at everything that encompasses to put together a roster.
Yeah, it's kind of like wholesale changes you'd be talking about, because my argument would be, all right, if it's about Gorman or Walker, which I think right now I circle Gorman a little more so than Walker, although the text you sent me today was true. The K that Walker took looking was a tough one in this game, and I thought that was a borderline pitch, but maybe you got to be a little bit more in protect mode there. Early strikes.
That's what it is. That's 100% is protect mode.
Yeah.
You when you start it's the approach of the at bat, and it's something that I get. He's a young guy, and when he started that at bat, it was first and second, and he's looking to maybe drive something into a gap to score that run from second. But when the pass ball happens, and now all of a sudden it's second and third, that completely should change the approach that you're up there with. And your mindset then is, I need to put this ball in play. I need to hit a ground ball to the right side. I need to find a pitch that I can elevate into a fly ball. I have got to score that run from third. It goes from, I'm going to do damage and keep this inning going, to I have got to get a run across here. And you can't do that with the bat on your shoulders.
I could not agree more. And I think even the early strikes in that at bat, when he is probably trying to do damage, those swings weren't particularly compelling. And so I couldn't agree more. That was a tough spot. If I were to grade it out on recent weeks, though, in overall value, I still think he's a plus defender in right, especially relative to the other options. Like, we mentioned off the air talking about the Burleson play last night, didn't take a great route to the ball that ended up plating the first run against Leahy in over a month. I look at it, Gorman versus Walker, and you're talking about Saggese. The trick of it right now is that there's not a lot of playing time for that spot, whether it's Gorman or whether you did send Gorman to Memphis and you called up Saggese. Like, they want Saggese to play, and so that's why he's not a great fit for that role unless more playing time opens up. And I feel like it's sort of a sliding scale. If the Cardinals are truly contending, which even though they've lost this series, they're still in a spot where I think that can be the case. Do not look at the standings. I said it when the Cubs started that stretch against a bunch of bums that they're playing for a month plus. Do not look until June the 6th, when then they play the Tigers and they'll have to play real teams again, because it's going to get worse before it gets better. I still think, despite all of that, the Cardinals can still be in the mix. But if they slide out a little bit, then you increase the number of games that you see Herrera catch, because Herrera catching more, to me, and I think to the Cardinals and the way they're handling it, is going to be associated with lesser performance from your pitchers and more games that you're going to lose. But at a certain point, you say, well, how much do we value finding out what he is as a catcher long term? If we're not right in the thick of a race here, and we are kind of looking like selling at the deadline, Herrera should catch more games. I know a lot of people have thoughts about Pages, and the comment here says that Pages will get squeezed when Crooks and Bernal come up. When it comes to catchers, it's always great to say, oh, we got these prospects coming up. I do not care. I do not care who the catchers are until they get here. And when they get here, we can talk about who's squeezed and who's not and who's got big league chops and who doesn't. I just think, Nick, I like the question. It's too early for me. The Cardinals do not feel like Pages is a backup catcher that is starting. They feel like he is a starting caliber catcher, kind of the ilk of early career Yadier Molina, where the bat is not what Yadi's ended up being, but what if he can kind of continue to develop the bat, be a guy that comes up in the clutch? They like that profile at the catcher position. They love Herrera's bat. I don't think Herrera is going to be a catcher long-term, and Runway to find that out would have been nice this year. I think they're already kind of internally making that decision. They're not, as Clabe said earlier this week on Card Sub 365 with me, they're not telling him to burn his catching gear, but it is one of those things where I think having him be primarily a DH and catch occasionally to continue developing that is more the way that they're going to go, Joe. And yeah. I just don't know how that fits into, okay, those wholesale changes, because we started with this wondering about the Pozo spot. Use the Pozo spot if you've got him. I see the argument there. I also could see the argument that, like, if you compare the way he was swinging it to how Luke and Baker was swinging it before he went down, that's a rarely used spot off your bench that they're not going to get a lot of utility out of. And frankly, I think Pozo had been swinging the better bat than Baker, so it doesn't really bother me that whatever position he happens to play, Baker is a zero in terms of defensive versatility, viability to a roster. He doesn't provide value off the bench because you got plenty of guys who can play first. Pozo being able to catch, to me, is an extra thing that you like, not a thing that we're going to make fun of them for roster management on. But you're not the only person that has felt this way, and so that's why I continue to kind of churn the gears on that. I'll make the case right now. I would rather have Ciani on the bench than Barrero right now today, because it's the same conversation we had before Mason Wynn's early season injury. He's never not going to play. So I don't need Barrero, who's going to be a lesser defensive outfielder, to be playing the defensive outfielder role off the bench. I'd just as soon have Ciani, knowing that they're not maxing the utility of the bench right now anyway, which is understandable, and that they're trying to get some guys runway. I would bring Ciani up right now and just let him be that defensive replacement. Burleson wouldn't have been in right field last night, right? You would have had Ciani come into that tie game to play defense, right, and you bat Pozo for him 3 innings later if you're still playing baseball. Just a couple of thoughts that I've had over the last couple of days.
I will say this, just to bring this comment back up here real quick and give my 2 cents on it. I truly believe right now that Pages is head and shoulders above Crooks right now as far as the organization is concerned. As far as them, as far as them looking, let's say, next 3 years at this very moment, I would say that right now the organization values Pedro Pages much, much higher than they do Jimmy Crooks.
Crooks will be a better bat, but I don't know that he's going to be Pedro Pages with the glove. Pages is going to be on this team in 3 years. Crooks is either going to be surpassing Pages like everybody would hope to see, or traded, or in a different situation, or maybe in a timeshare with Pages, with Herrera no longer catching at all. He's first base with Contreras' contract expiring, right? Like there's a lot of machinations that could happen here, but I agree with, like, let's not get ahead of ourselves. I like Bernal. He had a really good offensive day last night, by the way, and I like Jimmy Crooks. It's all going to kind of work its way out. I don't think it's one of those where we have to be overly concerned about the degree to which guys are being blocked until we really end up getting to that point. Like, I like Crooks. I think he's got a chance. He's got a long way to go and a lot to yet prove. We haven't seen him sniff the big league level, right? And that's a factor, whether he can hit or not. Can he catch? Can he do that at the big league level? Those are things we do not know yet, and we're a ways away from knowing.
This is a Card Hub Postgame. Still a lot to get to here on the show today as we dive into a lot of different things that we saw happen today. I've kind of touched on a few of them already, but there are still some games tonight. If you want to get on the DraftKings Pick 6 app and see what there is to kind of look at to maybe Pacers Knicks game 1. Are you a Halliburton guy? Are you a Brunson guy? Who do you think's going to have the better game? Are they both going to go off in the game today? And you want to go and you want to hit that more on all of those stats, you can do so on DraftKings Pick 6. You can do that right now, or take a look at some of the MLB games that are still going on tonight. and take a look. Maybe Kyle Schwarber homers yet again tonight, and you're pretty high on that. Take two or more players, pick them throughout each and every sport, and pick more or less on certain stats. It's that easy with DraftKings Pick 6. And right now, if you haven't done so yet, use code STL Sports. That's code STL Sports when you download DraftKings Pick 6, and you are a brand new customer. You play $5, you will get $50 in Pick 6 credits, better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. One per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
Joe Roderick, Brenden Schaeffer with you here. Cardinals lose 5-1 to the Detroit Tigers in the finale of the 3-game series. Want your thoughts on the game? We've already kind of gone over quite a bit of some of the little things here and there. Ivan Herrera is the kind of the big thing on him catching today. That's been brought up a lot. As you look through the comments and the lineup construction today, you give Lars Nootbaar the day off.
Yeah,
Walker Gorman back to back in the lineup. It's got to I I don't know what else you do with that lineup there in that moment. I mean, that's those guys right now. They're 7-8 hitters for you. I don't know what else you could possibly do with them in the lineups today.
No, I've seen a couple comments about, well, this was managerial mistakes being made, and this commenter didn't like that they pinch hit with Pozo when, I think Pozo for Victor Scott in that situation, left-handed pitcher on the mound. I don't see that as a dumb move at all. I think, again, it's a little awkward because he's also kind of doubling and moonlighting as your third catcher, but Pozo is a better bat off the bench than what I think Luken Baker was giving you for those precise situations. You can say, well, Luken Baker didn't get a chance. He didn't get to play very much. Luken Baker is 28 years old, and at a certain point, that's his role. If he's going to stick in the big leagues, he's going to be a bat that comes off the bench and has to mash against lefties. That's the value that he provides to this league. And he wasn't really doing quite enough of it consistently. And so, yeah, you stick with the guy who's got a little bit of a catcher versatility that you could use. You did, though, give up defense there. I won't disagree with that. Victor Scott being taken out of the game, you would say, well, last night they really wanted to stick with their good defensive lineup by keeping Pages in there. Fine. I'm not necessarily arguing that you're wrong to bring that up. I would just say that, they're telling you how they feel about Pedro Pages. For everybody that has sort of, I just think this was a case of coming into the offseason, people heard runway and they said, oh, great, Herrera's going to be a starting catcher. And I said, no, he's not. He's not. It's going to be Pedro Pages catching at least half the games. And then when Herrera got hurt and they kept winning with Pages back there, they're like, yeah, this is our guy. And Herrera's bat obviously plays. So you DH him more than you probably planned to, which means even less opportunity for Walker and Gorman, who are hitting sub 200. They finally are both in lineup again at the same time today, and they don't really do much. The one hit that they get between the 6 at-bats they took was a pitch that Gorman it was an outside sweeper that he pulled past the first baseman who was trying to hold the runner on the bag. So, credit where it's due. Love to see him get a hit, but I was like, of all the hits that Gorman could get, if you're trying to really look for something to be excited about, that was probably not the one that you're just jazzed about. So, I don't know, Joe. It's just one of those things where, like you said, I don't look at this as a manager or anything. I look at this as Palante walked too many guys. I think there might have been a little bit of a hangover from, we got really close to beating the best pitcher in the American League yesterday, and we came up short. And I was in that clubhouse last night, Joe, after the game, and it felt like a clubhouse that just lost a playoff game, where it's you just could sense a little bit of tension in that room, and Oliver Marmol was kind of beating himself up over some of the late decisions in that game. I didn't happen to have many issues with them, but that was a game where they felt the energy. Really, they were close to something special to be able to come back from down 4-0. And once they didn't, you could make the case, and maybe this out of school for me to say this from my basement since I wasn't down there today, but it felt like watching this game, they just had they were a little bit of a step off, right? After they came so close last night. And there might have been a little bit of that hangover factor today.
It's a team right now. I mean, they're a team that kind of believed in everything they talked about in spring training of what they could be. And going into spring, oh, we're the underdogs. Oh, nobody believes in us. We're going to prove them wrong. And then the season got off to a little bit of a slow, rough start, and there were some rough patches. And the pundits and the critics were like, no, this is what they were going to be. And then they've gone on this run and showed everybody what they could be. And now the team's like, yeah, this is what we hyped ourselves up to be in spring training. Yeah. When we looked around, we believe it. And yeah, to lose and to be upset about that, because we've talked how many times about the aces that they've beaten this year throughout baseball. And they had a chance to do that again last night. They came real close to doing it again last night, and they just didn't come through. And that's not that. And I wasn't in there yesterday, but I'm guessing the feeling that you're explaining isn't, frustration that, we lost again. It's more frustration of should have had that one, that frustrated. We let that one slip away to a guy that dominated baseball last year. And we should have beaten him more that than anything else.
Yeah. And they did mount the charge. It's not like they lost 5-0 and they felt bad about that. They were 4-4. They had battled back in the game last night, and to then let it slip away, and to let it slip away without ever seeing your closer pitch. Last night was not a traditional, the manager's, making a mistake. He's not using his closer in the ninth inning because of some stubbornness about what you're supposed to do. At home, Ollie would be more than willing to do that, and even said after the game, I think that was the decision, as I wrote for SportsHubSTL.com. Definitely go check that out if you missed it and can kind of double back to last night's game. It was one of those that stuck with him after the game, more so than should I pinch hit Pages and any of that. It was, man, going to Leahy for that last out in the eighth because the Gleyber Torres at bat would have been really a rough matchup for Steven Matz. Then you're suddenly kind of stuck where if you're thinking about getting through a 10th inning using Leahy and Helsley, you have to kind of keep Leahy going a little bit deeper, and the matchups in the ninth were favorable to do that. And so all of that being true, it's not necessarily that I think the logic was bad and that Ollie felt it was bad. I think you're sitting there at the end of a loss like that going, man, Ryan Helsley didn't even pitch. And so you just kind of feel like there's a lot of things that kind of let that one slip away. All that being said, Sam, I absolutely encourage you to let me know what Marmol was horrible with today to lose a game where Palante walked 4. He just wasn't quite sharp enough. The offense, they missed their opportunities when they were given them against a bullpen game. I get it. Like, I'm that antagonist where I'm arguing with people on the comments and on Twitter, but I always think I try to be really fair, Joe. And so when people just make blanket statements that I think are dumb as hell, I like to call it out and go, hey, tell me a little bit more about why you feel that way, and maybe we could come to some sort of a resolution. You comment on that, but then I want us to get to this question from Nick because it's a little bit more fun in terms of like long-term thinking.
I was quickly though, real quick. I was just going to say this one from Justin telling me Friday night's game's on Apple TV, and I went and looked, and that's bullshit. They just played a game. They just played a game on Apple TV. They just played a game on Apple TV 2 weeks ago. Why are you doing this?
Come on.
Stop it, MLB.
There are ways.
Stop it.
There are ways to access the game. Come on.
Hudson has a game Friday night. I wasn't going to be able to watch it anyway, and I'm not on Postgame. So, right. Yeah, that's bullshit. That's one game on Apple TV a year. Stop with the doubleheaders on Friday night. I'm done with it. Or,
who really hates it, though?
MLB TV. What they didn't do last time it was a Friday night game, usually they have a quad box and you can watch a bunch, and they'll put the Apple TV game in there. Exclusive. For some reason, they didn't have it.
Oh, for some reason. I think they're getting wise to everybody having their different workarounds from not paying for Apple TV. There are ways, folks. I'm not going to say any more than that, but people that have paid now, because I think you have a new influx of fans that now are able to watch a lot of these games because they got the streaming service. The Bally Sports moving to FanDuel Sports, they finally figure out a way. Everybody's streaming, right? And so they're like, why pay for all these games? Well, you kind of don't, because you pay for the games that are broadcasted by that network. You don't pay for the games that are broadcasted by, say, Apple TV on Friday. So I am sorry for those that are in a tight spot with that. But rest assured, Friday night, the crew will be here, whoever it is, on Friday's post game to tell you what you need.
Stefan and Pelican tomorrow, Friday night on the post game show, so they can carry you through that one.
That they have Apple TV and make sure that they are able to watch the game.
I would imagine Stefan is able to watch feeds that we aren't even aware of.
Feeds that don't even exist in the public, right? He's plugged in.
Stefan probably has access to the replay booth in New York that we're
just throwing out these things about Stefan. He's going to come here on Friday. The comments will be like, why are you saying these things about me? I have no idea where this came from.
You get 365 with him tomorrow, so you can bring it up then.
I will.
Yeah, you can ask him.
I'm going to grill him. I'm going to grill Stephen Carey about what replay do you access, and do you have a phone like the red hotline into the umpire's replay room when they're messing up all those calls? Is there something you can do? Can you pull some strings? I'll ask him tomorrow.
This question.
It's kind of fun.
I will say Mason Wynn, because I feel like that is the longest one you would lock up. It would be a 10-year deal for him, and I also feel like he is the face of the franchise. He is going to be the guy that he's going to be the guy that will be on all the promotional stuff. He will be the guy that is shown on the highlights on MLB when you're talking about the Cardinals for the next 8 years. So, and then on top of that, you're also going to lump him in with all of the other star shortstops in MLB right now being there. So I think that from that standpoint, I think Mason Wynn would be my guy.
Okay. So my guy first would be Brendan Donovan, but that's not my answer because it's too late. It's too late for him to be the first answer to this. I would still do it. I would hope that Chaim Bloom combined with Cardinal ownership in the offseason is like, hey, Brendan, we messed that up last offseason. It's like, I don't know what that other guy was doing, but I'm in here now and we're going to sign you. They took him to ARB. And for all we know, like Chaim Bloom comes from Tampa. They were notorious for really getting guys to ARB and really trying to kind of max those situations. So it may have been that Chaim Bloom came in and said, you're not really doing the ARB thing from the business side the way you need to be. You have to be a little bit more aggressive. And so they took Nootbaar, they took Donovan. I don't know that this is going to ever happen. I would love to see them sign Donovan, but he's close to free agency. The guys I would sign yesterday are Wynn and Scott. I would sign both of them with whatever the value is. I'm not really worried about it because it's not a deal that I'm going to get hurt by, because those guys can be a 90 OPS plus and still be a value to your team at what you're going to sign them for because of their defense. Mason Wynn is a great shortstop defensively. Victor Scott is a really good toolsy center fielder that's going to become more refined and get better as he goes. I don't worry about the back end of those deals burning me up because they're going to be okay offensively at their floor. And if they ascend beyond that, you've got a bargain. So I would sign them to whatever they and their agents decide is fair. Both those guys, I'd do it yesterday. Herrera's a little trickier. I think you got to wait on that. I think his bat is real, but if he ends up just being a DH, even if he's a great bat, the market doesn't tend to reward that as much as you would think. So at least as of right now, like the trends of baseball, you can kind of get away with playing it along with Herrera for a while longer. I would try to find Donovan a contract, though, because I think that would be the signal to the fans that, like, hey, we're in this. We're not going to wait 3 to 5 years to be good after, Brendan Donovan is long gone. We're going to do this right now because we feel like he's going to be part of what we're doing today, tomorrow, and the next day. And that would be a great message to me. But Wynn and Scott are no-brainers, in my opinion. I would love to see the Cardinals be a little bit aggressive there and get those guys signed.
And Push and Daisies points out the as far as the face of the franchise type stuff, the McGreevy-McDonald's deal. That's something that
a lot of opportunity.
You can do that. I know Sugar Fire used to have the Waka Burger before they changed that name a few years ago, and I think there needs to be some sort of McGreevy-McDonald's combination to lock him up while you're at it with everybody else. The stuff I looked this up while we were talking too, as far as Ivan Herrera goes. With that and being just a full-time DH, I was wondering because we've seen the Cardinals since they have been able to have the DH full-time since the 2022 season. Outside of Pujols, it's been kind of a mix and match of who needs a day off, who needs a blow type thing. And I think you're going to see this year Herrera by the end of it is going to DH more games than any St. Louis Cardinal ever has outside of Albert Pujols. With that. And I was wondering how many teams in baseball have those full-time DHs that you would consider to be that full-time DH. And looking at it, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys already this year that have DH'd 40 plus games on the season. So 80% of their games they have DH'd so far. Do you see Herrera being in that same mix with that too, as a guy that you're going to have around 75, 80% of his starts be DHing?
For the moment, yeah. And like, I think he'll catch between now and the end of the season. I think Herrera, if I set the line that he's going to catch 27.5% of the games, would you go over or under? Because I think it's right around, like, he'll be like 30%. And like, the more they lose, the more they might as well run him out there to get him some experience and be like, all right, keep evaluating him for the future purposes. But I think long term, he probably moves positions, not yet, but does he pick up a first baseman's mitt at some point? Does he pick up a right field mitt at some point if, Walker doesn't pan out, or if Contreras ends up moving along at some point? There are a lot of different ways that this could go if we're talking like a 4 to 5 year plan for Ivan Herrera. In the here and now, I think it's too early. It's just premature to really get into all of that. But right now, Pedro Paz is the team's primary catcher. He'll catch more than half the games. Herrera's going to maybe Herrera gets used a little bit more if they end up doing a Pozo transaction at some point, like you mentioned, Joe. But yeah, I feel like for right now, it is DH. And look, could that equation and calculus shift a little bit if someone like Burleson or Gorman just starts lighting it up and you're like, well, we can't have this guy out of the lineup for much more than we have. We have to be a little bit more clever and creative. But nobody's really, Burleson's looked good. I love to see them get some more chances for him. I respect how difficult it is right now. Right now, you're not getting Nolan Gorman knocking on that door enough to where it's like, oh, we should change what we're doing for Gorman. Like, I think there's got to be a little bit of a proof of concept in there from him before they're going to bend out over backwards to do that.
Herrera right now is DH'd in 9 games and caught in 8. So,
and by the way, it was 0 before the injury. He didn't DH a single time before the injury.
Right.
And that was when it was like he was getting removed in the 7th inning for Pajes defensively when he did start, if the game was close. And so the trick of it is they realized, okay, the bat is enough that, like, I think if he hadn't been hurt the day he was hurt, he would have been DHing within the next 2 days.
But yeah, we really talked about it. They had moved him up to number 2 in the order. And at that point, he wasn't getting a day off from the lineup for a long time.
It was about to be DH time for him when he wasn't catching 100%.
Yeah, that move to number 2 in the lineup, the way he was hitting, that was their way of saying, hey, you are, the pop in this lineup. You're there. We need you in a pivotal spot, and just could not have happened at a worse time. So.
Yeah, but I do think with this comment from you, Mama, he seems athletic enough to lock up to me. Could play first or outfield. Just not knowing what he's going to be is why you probably don't put yourself down to a timeline and a dollar figure long term. I wouldn't hate it, but that feels like it could go south in the way of like an Alan Craig comparison. And you might say, well, Alan Craig stunk offensively by the end. Well, he did, but he was really good for a while. And so it's not to say that Herrera doesn't burn bright and then burn out too quickly. I'm not predicting that necessarily, but a guy that's value is tied to defense, like a Wynn or a Scott, I'm much more comfortable when we're talking about the extension conversation, because I feel like anything you get from them offensively after you pay them is going to be a bonus, because you're paying them for their floor, their defensive acumen, and just their all-around skills. If they turn into great hitters, that ends up being a bonus once you've already locked them in. One more from me here, Joe, because I did request some thoughts on, if you thought Marmol stunk, why did you think he stunk today? Complaining about bringing John King into the game, but the key here that you circle from Ruddy, down 3-1. You have your A relievers and your B relievers. John King is a B reliever. He is of the 3 lefties in your bullpen, Romero, Matz, and King, he's number 3 on the totem pole. That's just the way it works. And when there's a spot for one of those guys, it's when they're down multiple runs late and you got to fill innings. The best teams, Joe, are going to have those guys that are the 6th, 7th, and 8th best relievers on a team. They're going to be good pitchers too. You have to use those guys, though. You can't just say, well, you're down 3-1, got to keep it close. No, like, you're down 3-1. You have to you pitch your 7th best reliever, and hopefully he's good enough to keep it close to give your offense a chance, but you're not pitching your top reliever in that spot. That's not a sustainable way to manage. I know I call him Kyle every day. You can't actually pitch him every single day. Someone else got to go.
Yeah, 2 from me, real quick. Are we really back on this because they've lost 2 in a row? Jesus Christ.
Well, he said go Cardinals. He said go Cardinals. Hey, he said go Cardinals.
You lose 2 out of 3 games to the team with the
Because
best record
keep 'em,
in
that's why.
baseball, and we're saying the team disappoints. This is their first series loss in a month. In a month.
That's all right. He said go Cardinals.
They've taken series from the Phillies, from the Mets, from the Royals, and we're gonna sit here and God bless it.
He did say go Cardinals.
God. And then finally, this is one we probably won't know. Brendan, I'm not sure if you're going down to Busch or not on Friday, but this is probably one that we won't know the answer to until you guys are down at Busch Stadium Friday afternoon. As far as Victor Scott II being removed, when he did get hit by the pitch and in the bunt attempt that was called for a strike, middle of the game today, he seemed to take a while to get back in the box afterwards. So I still don't think that that played a lot in it, as our good friend Matt Pauley tweeted out after or during the matchup, that Victor Scott's hitting 178 against lefties.
Yeah, that
Pozo going into that was 5 for 7 against lefties.
I just don't get how last night we can, and I thought there were such good conversations last night surrounding some of those key moves, managerial decisions, and we're wondering about not pinch hitting. And then you do pinch hit in the platoon spot where Pozo comes in. You mentioned the numbers against lefties. You mentioned all of the numbers for Victor against lefties. And I'm seeing tweets going, what a Bozo? Why is he pinch hitting with Pozo? You can't take Victor out. It's like offensively, he's doing what you wanted him to do yesterday and taking his shot, trying to get the runs to get back into the game. And you do sacrifice some defense. And does that contribute in the later innings to maybe not being able to keep the games as close in conjunction with your throwing your B relievers? So at times, like Roycroft and King are going to pitch in those games. That's the way it goes. I do not think it's a questionable call to take Victor out in that spot by any means. Wouldn't mind it if we're not using the whole bench anyway. I would say, yeah, put Ciani on there, and that way he can just come in for defense at that point, so you don't miss a step. If you don't trust Barrero to be used, like this would be my argument. If you do not believe in Barrero to be a capable corner outfielder defensively, or even a capable center fielder defensively to sub in for some spots, and you're not ever sitting Mason Wynn anyway, I know that people kind of poo-poo Ciani. He's more valuable in the role that he'd be used for than what Barrero's been used for. Just my 2 cents.
We will go for now. Tomorrow, a Cards Hub 365. Brendan, you and Stefan on for that. Fridays with Fagan also coming up 2 days from now. So a lot to talk about before the Arizona Diamondbacks are in town this weekend. We knew it was going to be a tough test this week with two very good teams coming to Busch after a 9-game road trip. And the Cardinals have 2 out of 3 games, very competitive in those two before what we saw today. We will take a look at what they look like Friday. Well, some of us will take a look at what they look like on Friday. Those without Apple TV will have to listen to it and hear how they look while listening to the game on KMOX. That's the only way I'm going to be able to take in that game on Friday.
That's fine. You'll be okay. You'll survive. It'll be a nice.
That's fine. I enjoy listening to the games on the radio, so I'm an old soul at heart that way. I enjoy listening to John and Rick, so I will gladly sit back and listen to that game on the radio on Friday, since I can't watch it on Apple TV. Thanks, Rob Manfred. That's going to do it for us today. If you missed any of it, you can always go back and rewatch it on the YouTube page, but make sure that you like and subscribe so you can know whenever we go live with all of our content here on Sports Hub STL. This postgame show has been brought to you by Hot Shots Sports Bar and Grill, home of St. Louis sports fans since 1990. Find yours at hotshotsnet.com. For Brenden Schaeffer, I'm Joe Roderick. This has been another edition of Cards Hub Postgame here on Sports Hub STL, brought to you by DraftKings. The crown is yours.